Hey everyone, so I wanted to put this up first because I just realized a lot of things, and one of those things being that this is actually going to be some sort of mini series. So I'm actually going to be putting all these videos into a playlist so that people can go, watch them in succession if they want to in the future, because they're all related. And the playlist is going to be called the 5K series because all of these videos are connected together through the fact that I reach 5K subs, which I'll explain in a little bit. I know that people are thinking that what ties these videos together is Markiplier, but funny enough, that's not the case. So moving on from that, I do want to address more concerns that people had in this video, but I'll do that a little bit later. For now, I want to talk about the main topic of this video, which is the idea of stepping stones. So I was in an MMO where it was a free-to-play game, and when I was new, everybody was like super nice and helpful. And anybody who plays MMOs can tell that these quote-unquote helpful people are really just doing it to show off for the most part. It makes them feel important and all this other self-centered stuff. Like it's pretty evident when you look at how they phrase things and what kind of help they're giving. As long as it benefits them at the end of the day, they'll do whatever they want for you. But since you're new, you think that they're just coming up to you out of the kindness of their heart or something. So you're not expecting the fact that once you are in a position where you're surpassing them, they no longer want to help you. And a lot of them become very passive aggressive. And so I remember one player went up to me who I was talking to about why I was so surprised by it, and she was telling me that I was a stepping stone. And so this is her explanation of it. When you actually look up what a stepping stone theory is, it's has to do with drugs and stuff. So something completely different. But based off of this theory that she told me, she said when it comes to stepping stones, they're going to help you out at first, but they view you as a potential milestone or a potential achievement. And when you first start out, you're nowhere near in comparison to them. But as you start to progress, you're still within range for them to surpass you. So now they're competing with you, and there's jealousy factor and all these other things, these other motivations for why they're no longer seeing you as someone to help and rather somebody to overcome, if that makes sense. And, it made a lot of sense to me. But I'm starting to notice that same sort of idea here, where I wasn't getting a lot of the type of comments that I get now until I was getting close to reaching 5K subs. When I had 4,800 subs or so, that's when I really started to see a lot of people saying things like, you're never going anywhere, you're never gonna go anywhere, nobody wants to watch what you're talking about. And I was like, okay, so why do you guys keep telling me that? It was so weird. And I was just like, you keep saying this when I'm getting subs right now. It was honestly confusing, and I kept thinking, why didn't you say this months ago when there was nothing happening? But it's because of this whole stepping stone thing. And I know this because as you guys already know, I have mods now because of an incident that happened, which you can look at this video if you want to check it out, and I'll probably show it a few times throughout this video. But I have mods, and they sometimes come to me about the comments that they're reviewing and stuff. And sometimes we have conversations about it because my whole channel is about, speculating and trying to understand toxic behavior. And one of my mods would actually go to the channels of these people and then show me the channels. And it was very interesting what kind of mentality is behind the people who do these kind of things. So for one, there's a lot of people who are pretty messed up who will subscribe to me and then they'll leave and then complain as if they're not this toxic person. I remember I saw this one comment by someone who was like, she supported a comment of mine one time, but then another one, she really couldn't stand my comment. And when I went to their channel, they were posting the most racist stuff I ever seen. And I'm like, well, whatever the hell you said, it must have been pretty bad. So how are you going to take it out of context and just act like you're not this racist person? It wasn't interpretive or anything. It was just flat out racist. Another person who was like a supporter of mine, they actually said one time that whites should reproduce more or else they'll become the minority. And they hated me after, like, because these people, they'll just come because they saw one video that they agree with, and they'll see another one, they'll be like, oh, screw her. And when I went to their channel, like, they had this horrible video where they were like talking about how, you know, all the representation in TV shows of people of color in the LGBT community isn't representation, it's propaganda. Like, this is the type of stuff that these people post, and then they're like saying, I don't like you. And I'm just like, well, good. I don't really want you to, you know? But they'll be talking to each other like they don't post those type of videos and stuff. So I just find that to be very interesting. And then something that's a lot more interesting, going back to the stepping stone theory, is that they are very desperate for attention, which is obvious when you read their comments, but a different kind of attention. So when you go to their channels, it's not everyone, obviously. I'm not saying these things are everyone. I'm not saying all the people who don't like me are racist, because people are going to take it out of context and say that that's what I'm saying. That wasn't my point. I'm saying that there's a lot of issues that these people have, and different ones have different issues, but most of them have some sort of like toxic issue. There's very few of them who aren't toxic, and the ones who aren't honestly tend to have an open mind, because I talk about so many things. You can't hate everything that I have to say. It's just impossible, like, for you to have that much of an issue with me. You're more so angry at my personality and not the things that I advocate for. And I know, because these people will advocate for the same things sometimes, like some are more reasonable people, but then they'll say that I'm not advocating for those things. It's like, can you criticize me for something I said? But I'll get back to that too in a minute. So going back to what I was saying. So for example, with my art, there's so many things people criticize me for that's such a broken record, but my art is one of them. Like, there will be people who give me this pretentious, really insulting advice, and at the end of their comment they say, but I like your art. You know, you should stick to that. I'm just trying to help. They always say, I'm just trying to help. It's like, all right. And the other people will just be like, you suck at drawing. You scribble all over the screen. It's like, well, these are sketches, you know. They're sketches, and yeah. But I'm sorry. I know that I'm not a horrible artist. It's just, you have to get to a point where you're not delusional. It's not something that's self-absorbed, but if I were to call myself a terrible artist with the kind of pictures that I'm producing on my art channel, then even some of the pictures I've produced on here, it would just be biased, and it would be an insult to people who are at the same level of art as me, you know? So I just can't be that delusional, say, yeah, I'm horrible. Like, I can't do that. But they'll say that, and you go to their channels and half of them are like art channels. And their art is horrible. Like, it's terrible. It's so terrible. There's no sense of rhyme or reason. Like, they cannot draw at all. So I'm just sitting here like, how are you going to call me a horrible artist? Like, it's clearly projection, you know? And as I've said before, people project constantly. And so I'll look at that stuff, and then you have these other people who tell me that, you know, like I said, you're not going anywhere. Nobody wants to see what you have to say. You should just stop making videos, blah, blah, blah. And again, they only started saying that when I got like 4,800 subs. And it really started to ramp up when I got 5K subs specifically. Then I just started seeing it all the time. But you go to their channels and they can't even break 1,000 subs half the time. And the ones who do only get like 10 views on a video because they have like 900 videos. So, well, of course you have 1,000 subs if you have 900 videos, but no one's watching them. You know, stuff like that. And it's just really interesting how, like, one of the worst ones I saw was someone who's, you know, just saying the same stuff like, you suck, blah, blah, blah. And then you go to their channel and their description said, help me get to 5K subs with no videos. They had only like a few subs, but yeah, just the fact that they said that, it just shows like what your motivation is. And, you know, people don't understand me, obviously. It's like I have a reason for responding to comments, which I've explained in this video, but I also have a reason for reading them in the first place. And it's because if you want to understand the mentality of someone, the best place to look, honestly, is their most controversial opinions. That's where you're going to get to know so much more about them, because essentially there's a finite number of things that we can do wrong. We can only be so bad. You can only go so far with how bad you are, honestly, and it can get really bad, but that's the limit. As of how we can evolve and grow, it's endless. So looking at the positive things just isn't going to help you understand who someone is, because you could do that endlessly. But when you look at the negative things, there's only so much negative that there is. And it may be a lot, but there's only so much of it. So people don't understand that, but that's why I read comments, because it helps me to learn more about the mentality of people and stuff like that. And, you know, I actually did learn something new, which is that a lot of these people are motivated by my sub count, because they keep bringing up things like fame and fortune. Like one person, they were saying there's a difference between being famous and being infamous, you know, and you're going to be infamous for blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about being famous. That's not the goal. It's just so sad that these people can't comprehend why somebody would want to make these videos. Because I could be famous in so many other ways, dude. I was doing just fine before I started making these videos, and it actually halted my progress. If you go back and look at my channel, I was doing just fine. I should have just stuck to animations. But I stopped because I got obsessed with this and I care about it. So, no. I don't care about being famous or infamous for anything. I care about being myself, and I'm not going to compromise who I am just for some clout. So with that being said, you know, they always talk about fame and fortune, and they're saying you're just doing this for money. You just want money. And it's like, you know, if I wanted money, I'd put more ads on my videos, because I put up long videos, so it's more justified for me to put up a lot of ads. But I only put like one. I think now YouTube sometimes puts a second one on there because I just click like the basic option. And realistically, I think that it's okay to put an ad like every 15 minutes like they do on TV, but people put like 10 ads in a 14-minute video, you know? Like some of these people who are criticizing me. Like, again, it's projection and it's ridiculous. You know, like I've seen people just say all sorts of things. Like even one person made a video about me, and they took everything I said out of context. They made a bunch of claims that I never said in the world, like saying that I believe that most terrorists are American. And I'm like, I never said that ever. Like, that's not the point I made. Can you show the clip? Like, I clearly said that most terrorists in America are white. That's what I said. And I showed the evidence of it. And they're like, I don't know if it's true or not. And they're like, she doesn't do her research though. And I'm like, you're not doing your research. Like, you're projecting. You know, a lot of this stuff is projection, which brings me to another point that I want to bring up here, which is the idea of a Black Mirror. And I know why they named the show Black Mirror, which isn't the same as the definition I'm about to give. But moving on from that, I think that, you know, a Black Mirror is when somebody is showing a dark reflection of someone else, because it's something to compare yourself to. And it makes you realize some of your inner intentions. And so I have noticed that with this, for example, I've acted as a Black Mirror for people, and a lot of the things that these people criticize me for, they do themselves. So, you know, going back to the lack of research thing, like they'll say that I'm not doing research when they're not doing research, or they'll say that I don't know what I'm talking about when they don't know what they're talking about, you know, or they'll say that I'm not going anywhere, but they're the ones who's not going anywhere, or I can't draw, but they're the ones who can't draw. It's things like that. Like, that's kind of how projection works. I think that the reason why people project so much is because they're looking at a dark reflection, like not looking at one, but they're looking at something that projects a dark reflection of themselves through the idea of comparison. And if you can juxtapose something that you want to be with yourself, it subconsciously tells you all the stuff that you're doing wrong, or all the stuff that's going wrong in your life, because you clearly aren't that thing that you want to be. So I finally understand what the motivation for a lot of their concerns are. And of course, they're going to say, she's saying that this is why we're doing this, but that's not why. It's because of insert arbitrary reason that isn't the actual reason why we're doing this. But that's their motivation. And the way that you can tell is because they are being hypocrites. Whether you investigate their channel, whether you just look at the contradictions in their own messages, they're being hypocrites. You know, like even the petty stuff, like going back to Markiplier, you know, for the first time in this video, they like will say that I repeat myself. Like, I was reading this one comment that was so long. It was such a long comment. And I know that I type a lot, but this person spammed all these comments, and they were saying, well, you're the most redundant person that I've ever seen. Like, you're so redundant. I can't stand listening to you. And I'm like, okay, but you're a fan of Markiplier, because they made that clear. And he's redundant. Like, his whole comedy shtick is repeating the same word over and over again. Like, I remember the most notorious example was him playing some horror game where he was a robber or something. And he's like burglaring some house. And he was like, oh, I'm a burglar now. Am I going to burgle something? What can I burgle? Is there anything for me to burgle in here? Burgle, burgle, burgle. Like, he just kept saying it for like 20 minutes. It's like, okay, dude. And he does that all the time, you know? So I just find it funny. You're a fan of someone who's known for being redundant and also not explaining himself well. You know, the other thing that he does outside of being redundant is just saying words that don't make sense. And he's known for not being able to articulate himself. So his comedy is kind of wrapped around how he talks. And then not to mention your own comment, the guy was so redundant. Like, he kept saying I wasn't going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And it's like, but I'm literally getting subs right now. Like, you know, it's funny because these people are going crazy over 5K subs. Like, I thought that you get this type of disdain for a sub count when you get like 50K something, maybe. Like, maybe then. At least 10K. Not 5K. Like, what's so special about 5? My life is still the same. I don't know why you guys are going. I'm not going crazy over it. I said thank you because it's a milestone, but it's like the smallest milestone. It's like getting a viral video or having a few thousand subs doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be rich and famous, and it doesn't mean that that's what you're trying to do. It's just more absolutism, you know, taking the extremes of things, assuming that you either want no notoriety whatsoever or you want to be famous. And it's like, there's a whole spectrum in between that you're just glossing right over because you want to be famous. Which is, again, projection. So, with all that being said, I'm going to look at one of the most well-spoken critiques I've ever gotten, and it's very well written. It's one of the best critiques I've had, to the point where people were saying, you need to go to this video and read this critique. You need to read it. You need to see what this person's saying. They dismantled her. And I was like, oh, let's see what's going on. Let's see, have I done something wrong? And as I was reading it at first, I was like, maybe this person has a point. But as you keep going, the BS really starts to ramp up, and you can just tell that this person is just full of it, and it's ridiculous. They're just projecting constantly. So I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to go through it because I think that it's important to actually address this. And for the record, I'm going to be keeping this private, and I'm not going to be showing the name because I don't want people to, you know, pile up on this person. I don't want anyone to associate themselves or affiliate themselves with this person, but I also don't want people to harass this person because of the BS that they were trying to spread. But yeah, I'm just going to go through everything that they said and show you that this is one of the best critiques I've gotten. So this gives you an example of the crap that people say all the time, and just imagine how poorly worded these critiques normally are. Not to mention, this person did bring up new things that other people haven't said, but it's still the same stuff about you don't know what you're talking about, you're not doing your research, you don't understand psychology, you know, blah, 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 blah. So let's get started.